It is a stunningly beautiful continent. Victoria Falls is one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Tourists travel for miles to marvel at this unique land. It's easy to spot a variety of animals that roam free. But Africa faces a devastating crisis. AIDS is out of control. It's wiping out a generation of people, leaving behind millions of orphans.
Rachel has lost her mother to HIV/AIDS, and the father is now in full-blown AIDS.
At least 2 whole generations will be wiped away because of it.
The continent has been ravaged by wars and famine, but nothing compares to AIDS. 1 in 4 people in sub-Saharan Africa is HIV positive.
Just the magnitude of the AIDS problem is overwhelming.
It is in the face of this tragedy that a group of ordinary people from Nashville went on an extraordinary journey.
I've touched emotions that I didn't know I had.
We followed them as they visited nurseries and orphanages and listened to the cries of African children.
I expected to see sick children, but when you actually see them, it's just overwhelming.
It is a desperate situation, but it's not without hope. The group from Nashville wants to help set up orphanages, and they're helping a woman who does the work of an angel.
We started with a life of grace and a pot of tea, and then it made me realize that there are people starving.
We'll show you the amazing expedition and how you can make a difference. Ben Hall, News Channel 5.
Listen to the cries of an African child.
They are a generation of children dealing with death.
The AIDS-related deaths are just increasing by the day. Yeah.
The plague of HIV/AIDS. We haven't seen anything like it on Earth ever.
Africa faces a Holocaust, and much of the world doesn't know it. Many of the victims have done nothing more than be born.
Rachel does test positive for AIDS herself, but at this point she's a healthy child.
When 1 out of every 3 children will end up an orphan, and the majority of them will not survive because there's no one to care for them.
The lucky children get into orphanages. Many others live on the streets of Africa's cities. Sadly, some live under the streets. As morning breaks, you see children come out of the storm drains where they sleep.
Listen to the cries of an African child.
These children are performing a now popular African poem.
Poor African child, where we will go, where we will run to, across we don't know, beyond we can't see. Who will listen to the cries of an African child?
A group from Nashville traveled to this continent to listen to Africa's children. On this day, they're visiting a crisis nursery in Zambia, a country where an astounding 1 out of every 4 people has AIDS. The nursery is an island of hope in a sea of despair.
This is Stanley, and Stanley came here a few months ago.
Carrie Cannon just finished graduate school in Tennessee. She met Stanley, who is 3 years old. His mother died of AIDS, and his father is dying. Luckily, Stanley does not have the disease, but he nearly died from malnutrition.
If he hadn't come here when he did, they said that he would have died within days. So the fact that he's still sitting here gives you hope and is a miracle.
The other people from Nashville include a doctor who would normally see patients at Vanderbilt, a freelance writer, an accountant, and the executive director of the Franklin, Tennessee-based Outreach Foundation.
We see this as just a glimmer of hope.
The nonprofit group wants to set up orphanages and other crisis nurseries in places like Zambia.
The poverty in Africa is the perfect breeding ground for AIDS. Here in Zambia, the unemployment rate is 70%. This is a typical African neighborhood. And the only good thing you can say for these children is that they still have parents.
We walked through one of the few state-run orphanages before being kicked out. It was filthy and overcrowded. If children can't get into a church-run orphanage, this is their best hope.
All right. Yeah.
Paul Nishengi runs an African grade school. He's fighting to educate children about how AIDS is spread.
Earlier on, the government was trying to deny that there was such a serious problem.
It's hard to deny the problem now, but many people still don't understand how AIDS is transmitted. It's being passed on by heterosexual sex, through tainted blood supplies, and through breastfeeding.
We have hope that we are going towards a better future. That's why we keep going.
But if no one listens to the cries of Africa's children, they won't have a future. Right now, the future is a scary thought. They wake up with the sun crawling out of the cracks where they sleep. You lived in here last night?
Yes.
It's hard to believe where you'll find children sleeping. Several shared this spot. They say it's warm and protected.
That is a big area, a big place to sleep inside.
They are the faces behind the statistics. The United Nations estimates there are 10 million street children in Africa. That's more than 4 times the population of Tennessee.
More than my father died last year.
Limick is 15 years old. He had nowhere to go after his parents died of AIDS. Now he joins other children scavenging for food.
We are starving. No food to eat.
But in a place where many are too poor to help, there is one amazing woman. She drives an old beat-up car to the same spot every morning, a spot where dozens of street orphans line up to see her.
This is Fidelis. This is Rejoice.
She knows them by name. They know her as the tea and bread lady. It's what she gives them every morning.
Thank you, madam.
It started with a life of bread and a pot of tea. And then made me realize that there are people starving.
Her name is Joan, and she's committed to fighting the AIDS epidemic by helping the orphans it leaves behind. On this morning, she tells the kids about a street orphan named John. They know he's sick and in the hospital.
We didn't expect him to make it on Sunday. It's now Tuesday, and he is still going.
Even though she's half a world away, she has a connection with Nashville. A church is helping her work.
We just brought the things that Joan asked us for, and we are going to continue to try to get things to her.
They brought money for food and clothes. And Vanderbilt doctor Rebecca Swan brought basic medicine Joan can give to the kids.
There's obviously a lot of HIV in this population. Can you see out of that eye? You do have TB? Okay. Are you taking your medicine? Does it hurt when you open your mouth?
It is overwhelming. I think it's one of the most overwhelming experiences I've had professionally.
The group from Nashville came here to help Joan for 2 weeks and to see the work she is doing.
If you can help one person, then you change the world. And that's what we're trying to do here.
But the new ones on, they might be a little big, but that way you can grow into them, okay?
Many of these children are here because of AIDS. And sadly, the crisis will get worse because of them. They obviously live in poverty, and some will turn to sex for money. They'll get infected with HIV and won't know it, and continue spreading the disease. In the afternoons, Joan visits the children who are sick. She took Rebecca Swan to the hospital to see John.
And there's no place to send me when we send me in here. He brings us in here.
They found out he died about an hour earlier. Like so many others, he died of AIDS.
Okay, thank you so very much.
It's the sad reality Africa now faces. But in the midst of this tragedy, there is hope. Joan will be back on the streets in the morning. It's a continent of contrasts, a continent of incredible beauty and heartbreaking poverty. A continent with some of the warmest people in the world, yet many of its countries are ravaged by war. Africa has many identities, but now the world is identifying Africa as the epicenter of a deadly plague. AIDS is out of control. The world has never seen anything like it.
Every day we are missing parents. They are dying.
It is right across the family lines, women, children, as well as the men.
Many wonder why America should worry about a problem that's half a world away, especially when we have poverty and AIDS here at home. Well, the White House just issued this report. It says AIDS is a threat to our national security.
The report says as Africa goes, so goes India. AIDS is already spreading there, then other countries will follow. A generation of workers is dying, which could cause the economies to collapse, threatening world growth and stability. This is Samson. His story is typical.
He has lost both his mother and his father, probably to HIV/AIDS.
Samson is lucky to be in this nursery, but he too will die of AIDS.
Although Samson does test HIV positive, he is a happy and fairly healthy little boy right now.
The best Samson can hope for is to die with dignity. Many others will die on the streets.
If she doesn't get better in the next couple of days, we're going to have to get her to the clinic.
Vanderbilt Dr. Rebecca Swan traveled here with the Franklin, Tennessee-based Outreach Foundation. She treated street orphans and brought basic medicine.
Most African countries ignored AIDS until the late 80s. Here in Zimbabwe, they didn't start talking about it until the mid-90s. It seems like this make it impossible to ignore.
Africa's governments have done a terrible job dealing with AIDS. Many people still don't even know how it's transmitted.
Most of the people here in Zambia don't even bother to get tested because they know that there's no hope, it's a death sentence, there's nothing I can do, and so they just go on about life until it becomes too late.
This pandemic now ravaging Africa will be seen as one of the great tragedies of all human history.
World leaders know about the crisis, but they have little faith in African governments. Many believe the hope of Africa rests with church groups of all denominations that have taken an interest in the crisis.
We do not work with the governments. We just work on the local level with the people.
If we don't do it, I'm not sure there's other people that will do it.
That's why this group and others from Nashville are going. A lot of futures depend on it. In Africa, Ben Hall, News Channel 5.